So, Mushoku Tensei Season 2 is finally over, and I'm here with my definitely not late review of the entire second part of Season 2. Going through my thoughts on the incredible character writing showcased with Nanahoshi and Norn, to the jaw-dropping action spectacle and pure depression in the Labyrinth arc. Mushoku Tensei Season 2 Part 2 was absolutely peak. But as much as I loved this part, it also had some of my least favorite moments of Mushoku Tensei. So, join me as I go through some of my favorite and least favorite moments and episodes of Mushoku Tensei Season 2 and why I believe that even though this season wasn't perfect, it was still peak. I really don't have anything else to add to the intro, so let's just get started. No matter how you personally felt about the second part of Season 2, I think almost everyone can agree that this was definitely the most important part of the series so far. From Rudy getting married to getting close with his sisters, to having a kid, getting hit by Turning Point 3 and everything that happened in the last 3 episodes. These 12 episodes were jam-packed with incredible moments. So, unless you're someone who exclusively cares about action and adventure, I don't think people are gonna call this part boring unlike the first half. And as someone who enjoyed even the quote-unquote boring parts of the university arc, I am very pleased to inform you guys that I thoroughly enjoyed almost every single episode of this part. And believe it or not, I honestly loved a lot of the slice of life episodes before Turning Point 3 more than some of the action episodes of the Labyrinth arc. And that is because of the characters, which has been my favorite part of Mushoku Tensei since the very beginning. The character writing of Mushoku Tensei has always stuck out to me. It's great not just for an isekai anime, but just anime in general. The author manages to write some of the most realistic and uncannily human feeling characters and conflicts that always take me by surprise. And this part of Season 2 just took it to a whole new level with Nanahoshi and Norn. Nanahoshi was already an interesting character in Part 1, but seeing her desperation and realizing just how messed up her situation is really hits hard. Only 2 episodes in the entire anime have been Nanahoshi focused, and she's already better than 90% of isekai protagonists and characters. She feels like a completely fleshed out protagonist of a whole different story while being a side character who doesn't even have that much screen time either. And it's not like she's a wasted character either. Her juxtaposition with Rudeus is genuinely really interesting. And it's really cool how she feels like an older isekai protagonist where the common goal was trying to get back to home, whereas Rudeus is an introspective look into protagonists of newer isekais which lean more into the escapism and power fantasy aspects. And then we have Norn, who quickly became one of my favorite Mushoku Tensei characters. I absolutely love her parallels with past Rudeus and becoming a shut-in, and the reason for her becoming a shut-in being Rudeus himself made for such an interesting conflict, and the episode had an incredible emotional payoff, with Rudeus getting some closure about his older brother's feelings from his past life, and Norn finally opening herself up to Rudeus and realizing that he genuinely cares about her and wants to be there for her. And I also loved her role in the final episode. She was essentially used as a stand-in for the audience, calling out Rudeus for what he did to Sylphie. She absolutely cooked Rudeus and Roxy, and the scene didn't feel forced by the author either. Her actions completely make sense for her character, especially when you dig deeper and realize that she's taking out her frustration of losing Paul on Rudeus. And her presence also drives home the fact that even though we consider a monogamous person like Norn as normal, it's pretty much the opposite in their world. Her entire character is so carefully crafted for the narrative and conflicts, and it's genuinely baffling to me that she doesn't feel like a plot device and she's an actual character with reasons for behaving and acting the way she does. She is easily one of the best Mushoku Tensei characters, and honestly one of the best written female characters I have seen in a while. And now, let's quickly go through my 3 favorite and least favorite episodes of this part. Starting at 3rd place for my least favorite episode, we have episode 1. This is the episode where Rudy buys the house for Sylphie and goes ghost hunting with Sanoba and Cliff. I don't really hate this episode, but it just feels very meh compared to almost every other episode this season. The jump scare was pretty cool, but aside from that and the talk with Sylvie at the end of the episode, everything else was pretty forgettable. And my third favorite episode of this season was episode 5, the Norn episode. I absolutely love Norn, and this episode allows both her and Rudeus to grow after facing each other. It's also the most emotional episode of Mushoku Tensei for me, and if you wanna hear my full thoughts on the episode, I'll put up a card and have it linked in the description. And next up is my second least favorite episode, and that is episode 20. This is the episode where Rudy and Elena finally arrive at Rapan and Rudy saves Roxy at the end. My main issue with the episode isn't actually the content, but it's actually the pacing. It's expected because it is a light novel adaptation, but it really sucks that so many moments got jammed into a single episode. Roxy gets rescued in the very same episode, where a huge part is dedicated to making it seem like she could possibly be dead. And the reunion with Paul also didn't really hit as hard as I was expecting to, after it's been such a long time since they last saw each other. And lastly, the animation was also pretty bad in this episode, aside from the Roxy moment at the end. It really felt like a low priority episode, which really sucks because it had a lot of potential because of the content it was adapting. Then we have my second favorite episode, and I'm sure none of you guys were expecting this one, and that's because it's none other than episode 10, the Father's Day episode with the breathtaking Hydra fight. It is easily one of the best Mushoku Tensei episodes, and I genuinely won't be surprised if most people have this as their favorite episode. And even I was surprised at myself because it was on its way to become my favorite episode. The action in this episode was breathtaking, and it's visually the best post season 1 Mushoku Tensei episode. We also had Paul's death, which hit really hard even though I was spoiled on it. And the episode ends with the biggest WTF moment of Mushoku Tensei for me, with what happens to Zenith. I was genuinely not expecting that at all. I'll have my Mushoku Tensei playlist linked in the description if you wanna hear my full thoughts on this or any other episode of Mushoku Tensei this season, so check them out if you're interested. And moving on, we have my least favorite episode of this season and possibly the entire series, and it's none other than episode 11. I already talked about my issues with the episode in my review, so I don't want to repeat myself, but it basically boils down to me not liking how Rudy's depression was handled in this episode and how he seemingly got better after a single night with Roxy. It honestly ruined the impact of Paul's death for me, and my least favorite part is that there was no real build up to Rudy cheating with Roxy. It happens not even 5 minutes into the episode, and that just really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I do know that a lot of my issues are with the adaptation, not the light novel, because based on what I've heard from the readers, this episode was really rushed and they changed and cut out a lot of details. So I'm not gonna criticize the author or the source material, but I personally really did not like this episode at all. And that's precisely why I was genuinely surprised by how the situation was handled in episode 12. Which also happens to be my favorite episode of Mushoku Tensei this season. This episode was an incredible conclusion to this season that pretty much restored my faith in the series after the disappointing previous episode. Absolutely loved Norn cooking Rudeus, and the graveyard scene is honestly one of my favorite Mushoku Tensei moments, especially with Yuiko Ohara's beautiful insert song playing in the background. The scene truly encompasses what the entire story is about and shows that even though Rudeus has grown and changed so much, this is just the start line, and that is just so freaking incredible. You can check out my review of the episode to know just why exactly I loved it so much and why I think it's the perfect follow-up to the previous episode. But I'm just really thankful that we didn't end the season with me being disappointed on the final 2 episodes. This season had some of the best Mushoku Tensei moments and episodes of all time, and even though it wasn't perfect, it was still the best Mushoku Tensei has ever been. And this also sums up my thoughts on the entire series. Mushoku Tensei isn't perfect. There are things and aspects that I'm not a huge fan of, but it is still an absolutely incredible and unique story with a message about living life to the fullest that really resonates with me. So, basically what I'm trying to say is that Mushoku Tensei is still peak fiction. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and comment below what was your favorite episode from this season. Also, consider subscribing to the channel for more anime content. I'm currently working on a few videos for this current season of anime, and I also want to start the Mushoku Tensei light novels at some point. With all that being said though, thanks for watching and hopefully see you guys in my next video.